Good to go. All right. This is the April 1st, 2025 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals Zoning. Present are Robin Richards, Bill Goodwin Jr., Chappie McKay, Gordon Huey, Allison Grass, and myself, your acting chair. Present from the planning staff are Craig Bennett and Stephanie Kentley. Thank you. These proceedings are being recorded, and we ask that those who speak identify themselves for the record. We will conduct this meeting in usual fashion. We will first receive information from city staff about the application and their recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, the matter is uncontested. The Board of Zoning Appeals usually, but not always, approves uncontested applications. For all applications, the board reserves the right to ask questions of the staff, applicant, or others in attendance prior to rendering a decision. If, however, the city recommends against the application or there is opposition to the application, we treat the application as contested and hear from the applicant and anyone else who is in favor of the application. Next, we will hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application and open discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with conditions, or deny the application. The Board of Zoning Appeals Zoning has the authority to do three things. First, hear appeals to decisions of the zoning administrator. Second, grant special exceptions, a fact-finding function of the board. And third, grant variances to the zoning ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54-924 of the ordinance. The board may deliberate and make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members present at the meeting and qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum is present and qualified to vote. However, an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the board members present and voting shall be required before a use variance may be granted. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to the other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. We have a few withdrawals and deferrals this evening. Item B1, 8486 Society Street has been withdrawn. Item B5, 8H Street has been deferred. And item B6, 336 Blowing Fresh Drive has been withdrawn. Those items will not be heard this evening. If you're here on those items, you do not need to stick around. All right, I am required by our city ordinance to ask that anybody who intends to speak tonight be sworn under oath. Please, if you intend to speak tonight, raise your right hand. If you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, you will signify by saying, I do.
I do.
Thank you very much. First item on the agenda is A1, review of the minutes of the March 18th, 2025 meeting. I believe there may be some corrections.
Yep, I'm gonna make a motion to the 3 corrections. The minutes. The first one is A3. Bill Goodwin Jr. was not yet in attendance for item A3. For item B1, Bill Goodwin did arrive, so I'd like to add that note. And on item B14, John Bennett was recused from that item.
Any other additions or corrections? With a second for that motion? Richard, you and Mr. Goodwin, I think, were the only other 2 members. You'll second that?
Oh,
motion?
sure,
Okay.
sorry.
All those in favor of
Yeah.
all those in favor of corrections for the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Okay, the motion for correcting the minutes is approved 4-0. Is there a motion to approve the minutes themselves as corrected?
So moved.
Ms. Richards moves to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Huey. All those in favor of approval of the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None are opposed. The minutes for the March 18th meeting are approved with the corrections.
I did not vote because I was not present.
Thank you, Mr. McKay. Was not present. Ms. Grass was not present. 4-0. All right, moving on to new applications. B1 has been withdrawn. Moving on to B2, 245 UG Street and 590 Meeting Street, East Side, Council District 4. PMS number 459-01-03-048 and 047, zoned UP. Request special exception under section 54-220 to amend a previously approved 150 unit accommodations use pursuant to section 54-964 to allow modifications to the plans to include the property at 590 Meeting Street. Owner is 245 UG Street LLC, applicant Stephen Ramos. Mr. Bennett.
Mr. Chairman, Board, good evening. This application may sound familiar to you because over the past few years, it's been before you 4 times in a slightly different variation. This, as you can see on the map here, it's part of the East Side neighborhood there along Meeting Street and UG Street, immediately adjacent to the East Side Missionary Baptist Church, which is that property there to the south. And if it sounds familiar to you, you've heard it for the first time beginning in January 2020, and then most recently in February 18th, 2025. So the main difference between tonight and those previous applications we'll go through over the next few minutes. But in general, we're adding the corner property there at 590 Meeting Street to what has previously been approved at 245 UG Street. There's a copy of their application. Both properties are within the accommodations overlay. Let's see a street view. Again, adding 590 Meeting to what's previously been approved. Again, some more photos. Here, these packets have been provided to you prior to the meeting and have been available online. But here you see this expansion, while the hotel itself would be expanding onto 590 Meeting Street, would not result in any additional rooms. This is still an approval, was for 150, still for 150 units. There's slightly more food and beverage space, restaurant space in the hotel, as well as slightly more office or meeting space in the hotel. It's mentioned this does still comply with the ratios that are allowed under the accommodations overlay. Again, some floor plans. We have elevation drawings. So here you'll notice the previous approval is there on the bottom. The 9-story building. One of the changes is that now this instead of being 9 stories, this is now an 8-story building, which we're being asked to consider here tonight. And you can see Meeting Street's there on the right, kind of steps up from Meeting Street with what is that? 5 stories along Meeting Street and stepping up to 8 as you get further onto UG. So with all that being said, there's your parking calculations, as well as the square footages of the food and bev space, and number of hotel rooms, all those sorts of things. So wrapping it all up, again, this is you previously approved a 9-story hotel at 245 UG Street. That hotel is, the applicants are asking to expand that footprint to 590, the property at 590 Meeting Street, reduce an overall height from 9 stories to 8 stories, will result in the same number of hotel rooms at the end of the day. With all that being said, staff is recommending approval.
Okay, so staff recommendations for approval. You said the rate, you did say the ratios comply with the meeting, okay. Meeting in the restaurant space, okay. Is there anyone here in opposition to this application? Is the applicant here wish to present? Come forward. Do you have anything you would add?
Good evening. My name is Stephen Ramos. I'm an architect here in Charleston. I'm here on behalf of my client, Mr. Sanju Patel with TMGOC Ventures. And we just really love coming back here for approvals. Obviously, I guess the previous three were extensions of the original approval in 2020. Mr. Bennett did an excellent job of summarizing it. A lot of commercial projects go into hibernation, and this one did that. And my client had an opportunity to extend the site to that corner, which we feel like is going to make a superior design and a better contribution to Charleston. And we've been sharing the architecture with folks like the BAR staff, Preservation Society, Historic Charleston, and everybody's been really pleased with the design, but especially that the building comes to the corner and engages the corner. So I think all around, this is a positive change. And as Mr. Bennett mentioned, there's a long list of special exceptions called the accommodations test, which is 20 points. And we still meet all of those requirements. The building's a little shorter. It's gotten a little longer and a little bit bigger in terms of square feet, but the amount of hotel rooms is still 150. And we're still meeting all of the parking requirements, meeting space, food and beverage. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we would love for your approval tonight.
I had this question too when it first came before us. What improvements, if any, are going to be made to Hugie Street to accommodate the traffic?
So one of the positive things that's happened from the project kind of hibernating, as I said, is that the city is actually in the middle of a complete redo of the streetscape of Hugie Street from Meeting to Morrison. They are in the middle of design of kind of changing the width of the road. They're actually widening it a little bit. They're adding a bicycle lane. They're going to be adding sidewalks, which, believe it or not, only partially exist at Hugie Street. They're adding new curbs. So there's a lot of great infrastructure improvements that are coming along. And we've been in connection with JMT Civil Engineering, who's doing that work for the city. And it seems like the timing, it's going to happen around the same time that this hotel is. So that's a really positive thing. It's kind of lucky for us for waiting.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Mr. Ramos. Any other questions? Anyone else here who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion for approval.
Mr. McKay moves to approve the application. Is there a second?
One second.
Second by Mr. Huey. All those in, any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. The motion for approval of the special exception passes 6-0. Your special exception is granted. Mr. Ramos.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is B3, 2326 Sunnyside Avenue, Wagner Terrace, Council District 4, TMS number 464-13-00-050, zoned SR1. Request special exception under section 54-110F to allow a pergola extending a 1.9-foot west side setback. 9 feet are required. Owner Taylor and Alyssa Gates. Applicant is Craft Masters Construction. Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the board. Once again, we see a project that's been before you before. Granted, it's a single family lot and not a hotel development. But this was last before you for a similar special exception in 2023. At that time, it was a rear addition onto the building. The plans are now for a pergola on the back side of the building instead. So here, as you see, it's kind of at the corner of Riverside and Sunnyside. You're going in towards Lowndes Point. You can see the back profile of the building. That second floor, with the porch there. Their application. And the site plan. So here you see in red, proposed pergola. At its longest, it's 34 feet long, 24 feet wide. Similar, almost the same footprint as what was before you in 2023. Again, with the exception of that being conditioned space, some of that being conditioned space versus open pergola today. The rendering. And then we did receive, I believe, 5 letters of support, all from neighbors on Sunnyside Avenue. Given the neighborhood support and your previous approval, staff is recommending approval of this special exception.
Staff's recommendation is for approval. I just have a couple questions. Can you, well, I'll tell you what, I'll let the applicant address it. Okay, is there anyone here in opposition to? Yeah,
Sorry, I did forget, the previous approval was in June of 2023. So this is one that Robert wanted me to mention that while recommending approval, we do recommend that the previous approval be voided if this application is granted.
so it was the previous approval, it was granted, but they never completed the work, or they did not complete the work according to the,
They never completed the work, is my understanding.
okay, so this would, okay, this would be an alternate essentially.
Correct.
To what was previously proposed, okay. Do you have that? Is that included in this packet of the previous one?
It's not.
Okay, that's fine. Is there anyone here in opposition to this application? Is the owner or applicant present? Do you wish to come forward and answer some questions?
Yes. Weigh in with Craft Masters Construction.
Thank you. I have a quick question, and maybe this is, okay, so I'm sorry. I was thinking this is a variance, but it's a special exception. I was curious about the hardship aspect. But it doesn't fall under that.
Here's a staff level process for approving. Is this on the north side? Never mind.
Okay. Are you familiar with the prior approval? I know.
Only slightly.
Do you have a general idea of what the footprint was relative to this?
You remember what the footprint was, Jim?
I believe it was a partially enclosed conditioned space, like he had said, and then a screen porch off of that.
Okay.
Yeah. So they didn't do any of that. They switched and they wanted to change to do the pergola system.
Would they be permitted to come back later and enclose the pergola space as a conditioned space under approval of this? Or would it have to remain there?
It could come back for another special exception to enclose the existing space because it sits within the side setback, but that's not something that could be approved at staff. I would have to come back before the board if they were to create some enclosed space here.
Yeah, and with this particular system too, you can't like fully enclose it completely. I mean, you can put screens down the sides, but the louvers, as far as the roof is concerned, they open and close, they're motorized. So they went that direction because of how the house sits and the rooms that are in front of it. They wanted to still be able to get light into the house rather than have an actual structure with a roof where they couldn't get that daylight into the house.
Any other questions? Thank you. Your motion?
I'll move for approval with a condition. Is it a condition that the previous application that was approved be voided.
So the motion is for approval with the condition that the prior application is voided. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Richards. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion for approval of the special exception passes. The special exception is granted by a vote of 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item B4, 208 St. Philip Street, Cannonboro, Elliott Borough, Council District 4, TMS number 460-08-02-099, Zone GB. Request special exception under section 54-110F to allow a two-story rear addition, kitchen and primary suite with a 0-foot north side setback, 7-foot south side setback, and 7-foot total side setback, 3 feet, 9 feet, and 15 feet required. Owner Alex Ramsey, applicant Andrew Gould. Mr. Bennett.
Mr. Chair, as you can see here on our zoning map, this property sits about mid-block on St. Philip Street between Spring Street to the south and Bogard Street to the north. You can see the aerial, quite a narrow lot. May recognize this as being within the vicinity of the Courier Square project. Their application form. And here's a visual with 208 St. Philip Street being this small building here in the front of the streetscape. So what's before you tonight? Along the top there, you can see the existing building footprint. Along the bottom is the proposed. So while there are some changes to the layout and to the interior layout of the building, I believe changing from a 3-bedroom, 1-bedroom house to a 4-bedroom, 4-bath house. Most of that change is interior to the building, with the exception being this addition here on the rear. So you see a kitchen, as well as a spiral staircase. Moving up to again, here's the first floor. Moving up to the second floor, see that spiral staircase leads to a bedroom. In this case, given the changes to the front to the existing building, all bedrooms have their own bathrooms. That's true as for this addition as well. Elevation drawing. Another elevation. So, and this is a special exception. If you look back at the site plan here, normally at a staff level, we're able to approve rear additions inside of a north setback that meet the existing building's footprint or distance from the property line. With the I'm saying exception a lot, with the condition that addition does not exceed 50% of the existing building's length. In this case, it does. So that's not by much, but it does. So that's why it's before you tonight as a special exception request. Again, given the narrowness of the lot, the design, unique design to avoid further impacting the site to the south, staff believes this meets the special exception requirements and is recommending approval.
Thank you. So the city's recommendation is for approval. Is there anyone here in opposition to the application at 208 St. Philip? Is the owner or applicant present? Yes. Would you wish to add anything? Let's come forward.
Andrew Gould from New World Byzantine. Well, yeah, as you can see, the lot is so narrow that the requirement of a 15-foot total side setback renders hardly any buildable area for an addition. And the existing house is so narrow, and our desire to retain a rather interesting historic staircase that's in the middle of it, it's pretty difficult to make a viable restoration project out of that house without adding an addition on. So this addition tries to make the most of the tiny backyard
which of course is gonna be completely surrounded by 4-story buildings when Courier Square Phase 2 is built. So yeah, rather special and unusual project, but it'll be nice not to have a dilapidated house right in the middle of that new development. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gould. Any other comments in support of the application? Board ready to make a motion?
I think I just can't see where the curved portion is. Which are those two lines or which lines?
So
The setback.
okay, so the ordinance requires
thanks.
3-foot north setback, which is this dashed line, and a 7-foot side setback, which is this dashed line, and a total of 15, which if you add it to the 7 would bring it up to here. So that's 9 feet. So if you took these two, that would be the 3 and the 7 and the 15 total that the ordinance requires. So yeah, we're going a little bit beyond the 15 total, and of course, hard against the north property line there.
And so the request is for the 7-foot, it's noted, which is actually a little bit closer than what's drawn, but it's that to give you a little bit of flexibility in the geometry of that space, or is that?
Well, I mean, there'll be a little bit of an overhanging
Sure.
cornice, but yeah, it's probably more like 7 foot 8 inches really is what we're asking for, yeah.
And the upstairs porch bathroom is being removed from the project, is that right?
Yes, yeah, we're opening up the historic porch and removing that enclosed bay, definitely.
The limitations of the site, I think it's a good addition and it fits what's there, considering everything that's gonna be built around it. It's not gonna hurt anything else, so I'd move forward.
Mr. Gordon moves to approve. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. McKay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. The application, motion for a special exception, for approval of the special exception passes. The special exception is granted. Thank you. All right. Item B5, 8H Street has been deferred. Item B6, 336 Blowing Fresh Drive has been withdrawn. Item B7, 716 Old Plantation Road, Stiles Point, Council District 11, TMS number 42616000097, zoned SR1. Request a variance from section 54-301 to allow a 1-story rear addition rec room with a 16-foot 10-inch rear setback, 25 feet required. Owner Marilee Kinney, applicant Coastal Creek Design, Joel Adrian. Mr. Bennett.
Mr. Chairman, this property, as you mentioned, is in the Stiles Point neighborhood on James Island. Pretty close to the intersection of Old Plantation Road and Cotton House Road. Some aerials, photos, notice the pool in the backyard. Copy of their application. The answers to the variance test provided by Mr. Adrian. And some renderings at the home. Here you'll notice this is the existing site plan. Here's proposed with the addition and existing proposed. Like the previous application, this is for a rear addition. However, they're different requirements, different categories. Because no portion of this building is currently inside of a setback, must meet the 4 points of the variance test rather than the special exception. You can see total, this rec room, here, let me go to And some photos. Existing floor plan, proposed floor plan. This rec room is about 750 square feet. And as the chair mentioned, it would be, as proposed, it's 16 feet, 10 inches from the rear property line. As indicated. One thing I really like about Joel's drawings, he does this hash mark. So this is the section of the addition that's under your consideration today. Encroaches, said 16 feet, 10 inches from the rear property line. When your rear setback in the zoning category is 25 feet. There are also some interior renovations going on to the home that are not subject to the board's review tonight. Here you can see front elevations. You see the addition there on the side, the left-hand side. See it there to the rear. And proposed, existing and proposed rear elevations. Did receive 3 letters of support for this application. Really 4, but this first one was sent by the neighbor at 710 Old Plantation in both his capacity as a neighbor and a member of the HOA. So 3. So given all that, given the fact that this is a variance request instead of a special exception, even with the letters of support, staff does not feel that it meets the 4 requirements of the zoning test and is recommending denial.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. So the city's recommendation is for denial of the application. Anyone here in opposition to this application? All right, we'll hear from the applicant now. Mr. Adrian.
Thank you, Joel Adrian, Coastal Creek Design. Here on behalf of the owners to talk about this request for variance. So if we could, Craig, if you just put up the proposed site plan. So first, I guess I'd just like to say, obviously, we did get support from all the neighbors. We got support and approval from the Homeowners Association for the architecture and the design of the addition and the variance that we're requesting. That hatched area represents 200 square feet of land. And on that, the total lot being 13,000 square feet, we're looking for a variance to cover 1.5% of the total lot area outside of the required setbacks. You know, the nice thing is it's a rear addition, so it is going into one of the largest setbacks. It maintains the side yard setback. We're not encroaching on the side yard. Positives, we've got that beautiful live oak tree sitting in the corner, 43 inches. That gives wonderful screening. There are numerous palmettos across the back that also add privacy to what would be a neighbor behind, or is a neighbor behind. And obviously we would screen that further if required. I think that you know, what we're looking at is trying to create an entertaining space that works with the existing pool that's in the back and the house. And additionally, for the people that own the house, there's the requirement to get a master suite. So that's what you're seeing above the garage area. But the area that we're looking for your help and support on is that entertaining area. So when they have company, friends, guests, they can entertain, do what they need to, and have space to do that. So I believe that you know, really you saw our answers to the variance request were in that letter, the hardship test. I think that our request is very minor. We have support of the neighbors and the community, so not just the neighbors, but the whole HOA has sent support, and so I really feel that our request could be approved and would be a nice little addition to us. That I think I'll just answer the question that you'll have.
Thank you, Mr. Adrian. I'm curious, and I don't know if I can't quite read it. How far there's an addition that's basically one large room. What is it looks like about 7 feet that encroaches past the rear setback. Is that?
It's because that property line is angled and the other one's not perfectly square with the
Yeah.
house. What you're seeing on the left side, I think it's 7 feet 10 inches or 7'11".
Okay.
Is that dimension?
Mhm.
But then obviously from the opposite corner, we're at 16 feet 10 inches, I think, to the property line.
So you're still, okay, I guess I'm looking to the addition though, you'd be if you, without the variance, you'd still be 22
No, so
and
took
change.
8 feet off.
Yeah.
So 30 miles, they were at 22 feet. And so looking at that, if it stops at 22 feet, there's several things. It's the awkward relationship then of that new space to the outdoor living, and that location of that existing pool that's there. And so our design was really just kind of allowing the addition to really kind of shield, give privacy to that pool area. And then there's a proper way to address it. That folding door opens up and you can go down the stairs to that pool there. So again, I think it's 1 story. Looking at the front elevation, if we go to that sheet real quick, Craig.
The deck does not apply to. The
No,
deck is not part of the
deck's
encroachment, it's just the
porches
enclosed
can go
space. Okay.
Into a rear setback, I think as long as you're still at least 10 feet off of that property line. So, yeah, so if you look at back up 1 sheet there, so the existing front on the top, proposed on the bottom. We're gonna add the dormer over the garage, the double window on the garage left-hand side. And then this addition occurs, significantly off of the property line. And you're looking at the front of the house is 30. Old eyes are gonna be only 38 feet. And so I certainly would reference that as it's only got a 25-foot front setback, but there's an additional 13 feet that the house was positioned off of that front setback. Obviously, if the house had been positioned, where it could have been, we aren't asking for this variance, everything fits within the property, but we're dealing with that existing condition that was built back in I think the 80s. And so I feel like, again, from the street impact on the neighborhood, minimal, if anything. That simple little gable roof kind of tucking behind the main mass of the house. And then you'd have to actually be walking on the property to really see the scale of what we're proposing. That I would add, we go back to the site plan, Craig. And this kind of like with the pergola idea, but if you look at that, I believe if we were stopping our heated footage right at that 25-foot rear setback, I could still extend that roof out over that extra 7-8 feet, make it a porch and not have to be here. And so I guess I would use that as the plea to say that I get the city is not supportive, but I could still have the same mass and form. I could put a privacy shutter on the left side from the neighbor over there. So the impact on everybody around us is the same. It's just that we're standing outside versus inside. We are still like 3% under our total lot coverage for the property. So we're not pushing anything there. And again, we're maintaining that left side setback.
So, Mr. Adrian, as you know, there are 4 parts to the test, and I think we've covered a couple of them, but there's one that I would like to touch on. That is the conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Mr. Bennett, I wonder if you could pull up the aerial view and kind of talk about what's going on in the surrounding neighborhoods.
Yeah, from yours, maybe that one. Nice. So I looked, I think, I don't remember my response 100%, but looking at the size of that property, 13,000 feet. The one behind it's larger, the 2 on the street down here, the corner lots, larger properties, probably still larger. Like we're the smallest property, I believe, in this section right here. And it's not by much, but it's smaller. And again, I reference really where that existing house is located off the street. Had it been pushed forward where it could be, we don't have anything that we're requesting.
And you said already you're not exceeding the lot coverage limit by doing that?
No, we're 3% under, lot coverage, we're allowed 35%, we're at 31.73, so. Right, about 32.
Would you explain what the city's issues are, or how you feel like it doesn't meet the form test?
Yeah. What points?
Let me, I think from the city's perspective, I think the applicant, Mr. Adrian, makes a good point. Starting with, I'll start in reverse order, just that's what I'm looking at. Substantial detriment. We have letters from the neighbors, and this is towards the rear of the property. I don't think that that's a problem. But letter C. The application of the ordinance to a particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. I don't see how they meet that requirement. And even at a reduced size of, what did we say, 25 by 22, that's still a pretty large room within the existing setbacks. I think I would leave it up to the board with letter B. Its conditions do not generally apply to the other property in the vicinity. I think that's a kind of open question that Mr. Adrian just spoke to. He's certainly right in that if we go through the site plan, we could go back in time. We can't, but if we could, that building could be built significantly further forward towards the street. And then the extraordinary exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. I think A and C are the two issues or two questions that our city doesn't feel they've successfully adequately met.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Thank you, Mr. Adrian. Is there anybody else here who wishes to speak in support of the application? I apologize, Bill. Did you have a question for Mr. Adrian? Okay.
One question I do have. How big is the house? Do you know, living area?
It's I bet if you go to those floor plan sheets, we've got a little calculator in there. Great, so go down. Scroll down a couple sheets, get to like the existing or first floor, probably existing first. Yeah, so here, what you got is currently 2,000 square feet footprint, 380 square feet up in room above garage for total 2,400. And then our addition is basically that room in the back, and then we're increasing the size in the attic of that frog area, so we'd be at 3,300 total, 3,380.
Right now it's 3,380 or that's
No, right now
proposed?
it's 24.
Okay.
We're adding
2402. Gotcha.
978 square feet.
Gotcha.
Does that frog square footage go away if you shorten that rear addition, or is that still?
No, we could still maintain that
Still
that frog square footage.
Okay.
But again, I would just stress that if you say no, I can make that a porch. So massive wise, impact wise on the neighborhood, it's not any different. It'll just keep more noise inside if it's conditioned versus open porch area. So it's that, I understand the zoning ordinance that we have, it just seems like there's neighborhood support and there's a reason to say that this is not gonna harm anybody in the area if it's granted.
Further discussion?
The new zoning code, when it goes into effect, how would that work? And it's okay.
I don't want to speculate.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, I think there is adequate space to build, so I'm gonna agree with the city that, it doesn't affect the utilization of the site, so. Be my 2 cents.
I agree with the city, but I also agree with Mr. Adrian's. I think the design of the space with respect to the rest, of what's going on out there is done quite well. It's unfortunate that it's still usable space without, because if we deny it, there'll be a port instead of an enclosed space.
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
I didn't hear a motion. I apologize. Mr. Goodman, did you state a motion?
I make a motion to deny.
Motion to deny. Okay, Mr. Huey, seconds the motion. Any further discussion? I'll just add a quick point because it is often we find ourselves sort of stuck in a challenging situation where there's a clear benefit perhaps in some ways to moving forward in one path, but our zoning ordinances are very restrictive and they have a very specific test we have to go through. That makes it difficult for us sometimes to be able to I don't want to say common sense approaches, but I think, things that are to the benefit of the neighborhood sometimes have a hard time getting through. So that's my final comment on that. We ready to make a vote? All those in favor of denial, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion to deny the application for the variance is carries by 6-0. The application is denied. Thank you, Mr. Adrian.
Thank you.
All right. Oops. Final item this evening is B8, 299 Seven Farms Drive, Daniel Island, Council District 8, PMS number 275-00-00-165, 210 and 211, zoned DITC and DIR. Request a variance from section 4.410 of the Daniel Island Master Plan to provide 37 off-street parking spaces, 51 spaces required. Owner, Church of the Holy Spirit, DI Inc. Applicant, Church of the Holy Spirit, DI Inc. Dave Rogers, Church Treasurer. Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here we have the Church of the Holy Spirit, Daniel Island, at a very prominent spot at the intersection of Seven Farms Drive, Daniel Island Drive. They're currently working, as we'll see here, again, here's the aerial. You see the existing church here at the traffic circle, as well as their office space and some educational classrooms here in the building to the left. It's in addition to this building on the left-hand side that's before you here tonight. Largely extend in an L shape along, I believe that's Seven Farms. And then make a left-hand turn into what's currently a gravel parking lot. I have to remember to bring a mouse with me next time. Here's their application. Their letter from their project manager speaks to the variance test. But small, but again, you have the church here on the left-hand side. See existing classroom, building, daycare, this hashed section here, about 7,000 square feet worth of addition. I believe it is 5 classrooms and some additional office space to expand their preschool program. The more clear version of that floor plan, both existing and proposed. Some images of the existing gravel parking lot. And then we received 2 letters of support, both from the Daniel Island Architectural Review Board, and then from a managing member of a business, an immediate neighbor, right next door. So, given context of the application, the addition to meet their requirements for, to support their preschool program, and the site constraints, city, and the two letters of support, the city is recommending approval of this parking variance.
Thank you. The city's recommendation is for approval. Is there anyone here in opposition to the application? Is the applicant present? Wish to present?
My name is Jonathan Bennett. I'm the rector or senior pastor of the Church of the Holy Spirit on Daniel Island, Church in the Anglican Diocese of South Carolina, and I'm here to ask you to approve a variance on parking spaces for our planned building expansion. Population of Daniel Island has grown significantly since our church was first opened in 2006, and also since our preschool opened 17 years ago. And we felt this is a church through the growing wait list our preschool has each year and experiences each year. Sometimes with over 50 children we're unable to find spaces for. We've gotten creative and tried afternoon preschool and adding an additional temporary classroom in our parish hall, but none of these can meet the needs in the same way that expanding our current parish life centre would. And we believe we can offer the community a much needed service by enlarging our facilities to accommodate up to 50 more young students with no adverse impact on the adjacent businesses or neighbours. Each day the parents of our 90 current students walk, ride bicycles, drive golf carts and cars and drop off students for up to 5 hours of excellent preschool education. And we have a maximum of 15 teachers on site each day and approximately 5 other staff at any one time. There's ample parking for them, and even if we add 4 more classes and therefore 8 more teachers, there will still be enough parking throughout the day. We have a good relationship with the neighboring businesses at 297 Seven Farms Drive, and as the letter they have signed shows, they have no objection to this expansion. I therefore request that you will allow the variance and enable us to help meet the needs of providing quality preschool education for our growing community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here in support of the application wish to speak or present? Questions from the board?
I'll make a motion for approval.
Mr. K makes a motion for approval. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Huey. All those in favor of the application, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion for approval of variance is granted 6-0. Thank you very much.